Bear with me as I go through one of the most difficult activities I face on a daily basis, and that's making sure I share the right screen. So I'm going to pop this in, and if I have done my job correctly, you guys should just be seeing the main screen. So Tracy, give me a thumbs up if that's what you're seeing. All right, cool. So we're already off to a good start. Welcome to our webinar, Rethinking Pricing Strategy in Uncertain Times. Just kind of a heads up, we've got an action-packed agenda for everybody today. We'll start with some introductions because we're not savages. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the current environment and how it serves as context for choice making. Tracy's going to take us through how we use research to help our clients make choices more confidently, whether that be finding the most important product features, targeting segments, or optimizing pricing. Then I'll wrap up. We'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So I'm more than just the bookends of this presentation. I'll start and finish it, but I'm also a senior solutions consultant here at Heart+Mind Strategies. I'm on the policy and issues practice. I like to describe myself as Heart+Mind's planes, trains, and automobiles guy. I use that because I got my start in market research over 20 years ago, and it was at the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. And full disclosure, I'm not a pilot, much less an aircraft owner. So after 5 years, I was ready to move on and do something a little bit different. So I joined forces with the fine folks here at Heart+Mind Strategies. At the time, though, they were working for a different company. It was Worthland Worldwide, but that was a company that actually inspired Heart+Mind Strategies. Today, fast forward, a lot of my work relates to traffic safety, and I work closely with NHTSA on their communication campaigns and helping to develop, evaluate, and refine them using research. You may recognize things like click it or ticket, put the phone away or pay. These are the campaigns that they put out at a national level. If you've seen ads on that, there's a good chance that Heart+Mind was involved in the behind the scenes of bringing those to life. Outside of work, I volunteer for a nonprofit called the T1 Trust. It's pretty cool. They are building a brand new steam engine from the rails up with the intent of capturing the record for the world's fastest steam locomotive. So there you have it, planes, trains, and automobiles, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined today by my tag team partner for the webinar and the real star of the show, Tracy Fisher. So Tracy, why don't you go ahead and say a few words about yourself?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Fisher. I have spent the past 20 plus years helping B2B tech companies use customer insight to shape strategy from branding, messaging, and positioning to pricing and bundling. And like many of you, I've worked through moments when market pressure forces fast decisions with limited clarity. So I'm excited to share a framework today that helps really cut through that noise.
Some of that pressure, some of that noise, really, it comes from the economy. And let's face it, it's been a pretty wild ride for the last 6 months. A lot of companies are feeling those pressures based on that, and they got to get the pricing right. But not everybody's making confident, data-driven decisions. And so that brings us to what we're going to talk about today in our session. We're going to focus on what shapes choice and how to leverage market research to build smarter pricing, better product strategies that can adapt to the rising costs and shifting consumer expectations. The hope here at the end of the day is you're going to leave with a clear framework, a real world example, and a better understanding of how Heart+Mind can help you make more confident choices. So let's jump right in. I want to start by sharing a little bit of data from our 2024 voter view survey. You'd see a chart up at the top, and it would point to high prices and inflation being the leading issue shaping what drove the vote in 2024. It was at 24%. The next leading issue was democracy in the US. That dropped down to about 14%, if memory serves correct. We also had jobs and economy in the top five, the big things that were shaping how people vote. So if you combine those two together, it was almost like a ratio of 2-to-1 of the role economy played in how people decided to vote. So fast forward half a year later, the weather's a little bit warmer. We've got a new Mission Impossible movie for the summer, but the economic concerns remain. And just last week, if you look at the right side, I saw this post pop up on my Facebook feed. It's almost like they knew I was going to be talking about tariffs and the consequences of price hikes this week. So thanks for the assist there, Zuck. It's funny how social media works like that sometimes. We've been dealing with inflation for a while now. This isn't something new, but the recent whack-a-mole approach to tariffs, it ain't helping. It really only adds to the uncertainty we're seeing, and that's putting pressure on businesses to rethink their pricing strategy because they got to adjust. I know it, you know it. CEOs of major brands like America Airlines and Costco know it. It's real. It's something they got to deal with. Part of the challenge in the uncertainties is there's a big if in tariffs. Are they going to hold? Are they going to be paused? Are they going to be adjusted? I mean, it's a fluid situation. We see the news change on a daily basis. But one thing's for sure, it's going to put pressure on businesses and it has the potential to drive prices up in an already pretty unsavory economic environment. Let's look at an example here. And this is a nod to the trains part of my planes, trains, and automobiles persona. Model railroading provides us with a good example of the potential impact of tariffs. The industry relies heavily on parts and, in some cases, fully assembled product imported from China and Korea. If you go to Lionel Train's website today and do a search for their lowest price set, you're going to find the Mickey Mouse Express. It's an entry level train set, it's marketed towards kids, and it's an affordable way to introduce people to the hobby. That retails for $75. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got their Cadillac series. This is the 20th Century Limited set. And this is for the all in hardcore train enthusiasts. This has top of the line kit, premium engine, all the best quality materials, and it shows in the price, right? It's over $4,000 for that train set. Quite a big difference. And there's a lot of uncertainty about how tariffs would impact the hobby. And early estimates, I mean, it was as high as 500%, which would really cripple the hobby. It would be totally unsustainable. But thankfully, things have settled down a little bit, and those estimates were much higher than what's currently on the table. So at the low end, we're talking about maybe a 30% tariff, and you can see what that does to the retail pricing here. So it's gotten more, but arguably it's still somewhat palatable. It's not as much of a sticker shock as what you'll see next. Because at the upper end, the higher end, it could be as high as 145%. And if we were to apply that tariff, now our entry level Mickey Mouse set is nearly $200. And that top of the line high end 20th Century Limited, it's over $10,000. That is a shocking amount of money. And I don't know if we'd have quite as many people being willing to step up and buy something like that. So, what does all this mean? Inflations, tariffs, market uncertainty, all that trickles down to people like you and me as consumers, and it's causing people to rethink their spending habits. This in turn is going to add more pressure to businesses. They've got to now rethink how do they justify their value. Within those businesses, product and pricing teams have to walk a fine line of protecting margins, but they also want to protect the consumers and make sure that they maintain that trust. And they got to do it fast. And these decisions have lasting impacts, and it's a volatile market. So it really is a recipe for some challenging hurdles to overcome. Now, as much as I wish I had a magic wand that I could wave and make all of this go away, sadly I don't. But Tracy and I do have the next best thing, some market research tools, and an approach that will offer a smarter alternative than just a blanket price increase. This kind of approach, it's going to help you safeguard both your bottom line, but also customer relationships. So as researchers, we love asking questions, and even more so, we like helping our clients get the right answers. So with all these changes going on, all the uncertainty, it's not a bad time to kind of reground our understanding relative to the current environment and how customers, consumers are thinking about things, because a lot's changed. And so digging in and seeing, really what are the features that matter most to them, and what kind of price range can we play in? We've got to adjust pricing. How much room do we have to adjust? What's kind of within the realm of being reasonable? And when we think about those features, oftentimes product features aren't limited to one thing. There's lots of different features and benefits. And so how can we maximize our reach by coming up with that magic mix, the unique combinations of products and services or features and benefits that's going to allow us to reach out and get the most penetration we can have in the market? And once we have that magic mix, now how do we price that? This is a little bit different than the range we play in. It's looking at specific combinations of features and benefits at different price points and seeing the willingness of the consumer to engage. And the market itself is not homogenous. You have different people who value and prioritize different things. And so, kind of looking at those different clusters or segment in the market, who are they? What do they value and what are they willing to pay? So, these are the things we're going to try and dig into during our webinar today. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of choice and context. And since we've already referenced at least 2 movies, have a little bit of fun and continue to build on that theme. At the end of the day, one of the things that really binds us all together is that we want to make informed choices. We feel better when we choose wisely. And it may not always be his life or death in that scene in Indiana Jones, if you may recall, where he's got to choose which cup is the holy grail. But it's still important. Our choices matter. So, next, let's consider the question of what's wise. I'm going to share with you my favorite quote from the movie Smokey and the Bandit. Bear with me and let me set the scene a little bit because you may or may not have seen it. So Burt Reynolds, he's driving along and he's just picked up runaway bride slash hitchhiker Sally Fields. They're trying to make small talk in an attempt to connect with one another. So Sally Fields looks at Burt Reynolds and she mentions she's a dancer from New York City and asks him if he's familiar with various Broadway and theater performers. And he's just clueless, like a deer in headlights. So he's got to come up with something. So he responds back and asks her about, well, what do you know about NASCAR or Conway Twitty? And she's as equally as lost. And at this point, Burt Reynolds says something oddly profound. When you tell somebody something, it depends on what part of the country you're standing in as to just how dumb you are. I love that. I mean, he's essentially acknowledging the importance of context and the role it plays in understanding what matters. So, if we want to understand how to choose wisely, we need to make sure that we understand the context in the decision that's being made. And that's going to allow us to connect with the person that we want to connect with. Equally important is this element of human choice, both in understanding the context and in understanding wise choices. And right now, AI is all the rage. And I love the fact that I can go into Chat GPT and I can type in a prompt and it gives me a picture of Indiana Jones driving away in the car from Smokey and the Bandit, holding the Holy Grail triumphantly. I'm not sure AI made all the right choices here. It's entertaining for sure, but it's not realistic. And so it sort of reinforces the idea that, while AI may be here to stay, assuredly it is, we certainly need to have a human element to counterbalance what it gives us and to understand what constitutes a wide choice. And any good pricing and product strategy really starts there, understanding what do the consumers value. And that's where Heart and Mind comes in. We help our clients better understand their customers, the rational and emotional elements that influence their thinking and motivate their behavior. That informs what our clients do. It informs their decision and it empowers them to make choices more confidently. That cascades on, carries on to how they engage with their customers, helping them to make choices that best align with their needs and desires and values. And it's part of the purpose of the webinar today is to show how we use research tools to gather data-driven insights and how that empowers our clients to make more informed decisions and gives them confidence that those choices will lead to success. We accomplish that with research tools and advanced analytics to unpack how consumers prioritize their needs, tells us what features are most influential, how to bundle those features together in the right mix to maximize reach, and then how to optimize pricing. When people are forced to react in what's going on today, people have to move fast. And probably the most common response is simply just reactionary. But when pricing pressure hits, that instinct to reactively raise prices across the board really is no bueno. And one example that comes to mind for me is Verizon. And some of you may have experienced this, like one of their many just blanket increases in costs as you open your bill and suddenly it's $20 more, but nothing's changed, just but the price. Without a clear change in customer value, that reactionary move can backfire. It's a big time turnoff for a loyal customer. And that's going to lead to things like increased churn and reduced margins. The reaction, even though it's about price, it's not just about price. It's about the perceived value and what they get. So being proactive is a better choice. It's a better approach. You want to understand what your customers really care about and the trade-offs they're willing to make. That's going to reveal where there's room to adjust. It's going to tell you what you need to protect and how to position your offering in a way that feels fair and justified. Ultimately, those insights are going to lead to smarter, more strategic decisions on how to align pricing with what customers truly value. And I'm going to hand it over to Tracy. She's going to take us through how we make that magic happen on the next couple of slides.
So the first step in any smart pricing strategy is actually not about price. It is about value. So before you can make pricing or bundling decisions, you really need to know which features customers truly care about and which ones they're willing to trade off. And that's where MaxDiff comes in. So, unlike a traditional rating scale, MaxDiff forces customers to choose between features, revealing true priorities rather than inflated importance. And the output is a clear ranked list of what matters most, along with scores that show how strongly each feature influences decision making. So this can help teams in a few different ways. First off, focus their investment where it matters most. Secondly, trim features that don't add any value. And lastly, avoid removing something that quietly anchors the offer. If your feature set is fixed and it's not changing, you can just skip this step entirely and move straight into the pricing evaluation. But if you're making any changes to what you offer, this kind of feature prioritization is essential. It's also important to note that while MaxDiff gives you clear quant output, qual research can be valuable earlier on in the process, especially when external forces like tariffs create uncertainty. It can help teams explore how customers define value, what they're most sensitive to losing, and which trade offs they're open to. So, those insights can really help guide what you include in a max diff exercise as well as the pricing model. So, once you know what your customers value, the next question is how much are they willing to pay for it? And that's where pricing research comes in. And there are two common tools we use to answer this question: Van Wessendorp and Gabber Granger. Van Wessendorp is helpful when you're pricing a new or evolving product. It gives you a range of acceptable prices by asking customers what feels too cheap, too expensive, and just right. It's a great way to find a pricing sweet spot, especially when you don't have a lot of market data to work from. Gabber Granger, on the other hand, is more direct. It tests specific price points and measures purchase intent at each level. So this type of model, this lets you model demand curves and understand how pricing affects volume, revenue, and risk. It's great for established offerings where you're fine tuning price or preparing for a cost related adjustment. And these tools are especially relevant right now in tariff driven environments where costs are going up, but perceived value hasn't. Many companies are trying to figure out how much pricing flexibility they really have. So, oftentimes, clients use this research to understand how much price movement their current offering can absorb, to support margin recovery without losing customers, to avoid overcorrecting in response to cost pressures, and reframe value in ways that feel justified to the customer. And even if your product features are fixed, these pricing models still apply. You can test different price points, support levels, contract lengths, or package options to understand where there's room to move and where there isn't. So far we've talked about identifying what customers value and how much they're willing to pay. But once you have that clarity, the next step is figuring out how to package those features in a way that appeals to as many customers as possible. And that's where TURF analysis comes in. So TURF stands for Total Unduplicated Reach and Frequency. It helps you determine which combinations of features will maximize your overall market coverage. So it doesn't tell you which features are most popular. Instead, it identifies the smallest set of features that together reach the largest number of people without any overlap. And importantly, Turf builds directly on the results from the MaxDiff exercise. So it uses the feature preferences the customers have already prioritized to find bundle configurations that appeal across segments. The output is a ranked list of bundle combinations along with the estimated percentage of your target market that each one reaches. So this reach estimate gives you both an upper and lower bound on how many customers a bundle is likely to resonate with, helping you forecast potential market impact. So clients use Turf to optimize their product or service portfolio, to decide which bundles to keep, modify, or retire, to overlay pricing insights to ensure each bundle is not only appealing, but also financially viable, and to forecast upper and lower bounds on market reach to guide strategic decisions. This approach is especially valuable when tariff-driven cost pressures force you to reconfigure or streamline your offerings. Turf will give you the confidence to make those changes in a way that protects both reach and revenue. All right, so far we've talked about identifying the right features, understanding price sensitivity, and optimizing bundles. But sometimes you need to evaluate features and pricing together, not separately, and that's really where Conjoint comes in. So Conjoint helps you understand how customers make decisions when faced with actual product choices. It shows them different combinations of features and prices and asks them to choose the one they would most likely select. This reveals really how people make trade-offs. It shows not just what they prefer, but what they're willing to give up to get what matters most. Conjoint is especially useful when you're testing multiple feature sets and price points. If you need to forecast how product changes will affect demand, or if you want to understand, which combinations are most competitive. It'll answer questions like which features drive choice, how much customers are willing to pay for each, and which configurations are most resilient under pressure. But a lot of people ask, how do you decide between MaxDiff and Conjoint? Well, MaxDiff works really well when you want a quick read on feature importance and are not testing price at the same time. It's efficient and it requires a smaller base size. But Conjoint is better when you need to evaluate complex trade-offs between features and pricing in a realistic setting. It'll provide deeper insights than a MaxDiff, but it's going to require a larger base size and more setup. All right. So one of the most powerful outcomes of this type of research, whether you're using MaxDiff, Gabbard Granger, Turf, or even Conjoint, is the ability to go beyond the averages and see how different types of customers think and behave. So not every customer values the same features, and not every customer reacts to pricing the same way. And that's why segmentation can be so valuable. And in this case, we're not talking about traditional segmentation based on demographics or brand attitudes. Instead, we're using the data you already have, so feature preferences, price sensitivity, and bundle appeal, to uncover distinct groups of customers with different priorities. For example, one segment might be drawn to advanced features and willing to pay more for them. Another might be highly price sensitive and more focused on basic functionality, while a third might prioritize ease of use or support, even over price. And by segmenting the research results, you can tailor your product and messaging to what each group values the most, to identify high potential segments that are less price sensitive, to avoid unnecessary discounting by knowing where you truly need to compete on price, and to support your go-to-market strategy with more targeted pricing, offers, and positioning. This kind of segmentation really helps you move from general insights to actionable strategy. It's about knowing who values what, how much they're willing to pay for it, and which combinations of features will drive the greatest reach within each group. All right, so our client for this case study was a global, or is a global provider of industrial IoT monitoring equipment and analytics services. And they were exploring the opportunity to introduce a premium tier to their existing offering. While this project wasn't driven by tariffs specifically, it was shaped by the same types of pressures many of you are navigating today: rising costs, shifting customer expectations, and the need to deliver differentiated value without compromising margin. The goals were pretty clear: identify the premium capabilities customers value most, measure willingness to pay for enhanced service offerings, and determine the optimal set of capabilities to maximize reach and value. And what you'll see is how a structured, research led approach helped the client de risk their decisions and build a premium strategy that customers were willing to pay for. All right, so we began by identifying which premium capabilities customers cared about most. And instead of relying on traditional rating scales, which tend to label everything as important, we used a Maxiv exercise to force trade offs and reveal true priorities. And this helped us separate the must haves from the nice to haves. Capabilities like extended data access and flexible equipment sharing rose to the top as non negotiables. These findings gave the client a really clear foundation for their premium offer. Without this step, they would have been making pricing and bundling decisions based on assumptions rather than evidence. And just as important as knowing what not to include, helping the client avoid unnecessary costs tied to low impact features, especially in today's environment where cost pressures are real. Knowing what actually drives value is critical to getting your offer right. So once we had clarity on which premium capabilities mattered most, the next step was to test pricing strategies that reflected that value. We used Gabbard Ranger to evaluate two different models: a percent based increase over the client's existing service and a flat fee premium add-on priced per device. Each option had trade-offs. The percent model simulated a bundled premium tier and worked really well for large enterprise customers. They showed high willingness to pay when the value was clear, but smaller clients were more price sensitive, and a uniform increase risked pushing them away. On the other hand, the flat fee model offered, a lot of flexibility. A $300 per device annual price point emerged as the sweet spot. It really resonated with enterprise buyers managing large fleets of equipment and gave sales team a very simple, scalable way to frame the offer. By testing both models, we provide the client with options. So instead of defaulting to a single pricing structure, they left with a very flexible strategy aligned to different customer types and sales motions. It also, gave them internal confidence, knowing the price points weren't guesses, but grounded in real world willingness to pay. So once we had clarity on value and pricing, the next question was how to package these capabilities in a way that appealed to the widest range of customers. And that's where Turf came in. We used Turf analysis to identify the smallest set of premium capabilities that would appeal to the largest number of customers. It built directly on the Maxiv results, which meant the analysis was grounded in actual customer priorities rather than their internal assumptions. And the goal wasn't just to create a popular bundle, but to really ensure that across the entire customer base, as many people as possible would find something valuable. And what we found was the sweet spot was 5 to 6 premium capabilities. Beyond that, we saw diminishing returns in reach without meaningful increases in appeal. So this helped the client avoid over-engineering the offer. Instead of building a complex and expensive bundle, they could lead with the features that mattered most and skip the ones that added cost without adding, any real value. So with both the pricing and bundling insights in place, We help the client finalize what that actual premium offer should include. We categorize each capability into one of four priority levels based on its value to customers and its contribution to broader reach. And the result was a tiered structure. Priority one were must have capabilities that should be included in any premium service offering. These features consistently delivered high value across all the segments. Priority two were capabilities that could enhance the offer for specific customer needs. These are mix and match features that offer potential for targeted upsell opportunities. Priority three were niche features that had limited appeal. They could be positioned for specialized use cases, but were unlikely to drive broad interest. And lastly was priority four. So these were low value capabilities that could be excluded from the offer. These didn't meet the utility threshold and would only really add unnecessary complexity as well as cost. And this gave the client a roadmap for not just what to offer, but also how to offer it. It also helped align product marketing and sales teams around a focused proposition. Every capability in the final package had a clear role to play and a strong reason to be there. And nothing was included just because it sounded good internally. And the result was a more strategic, customer informed offering that could scale across segments without becoming bloated or confusing. And to close out the case study, here's how the research translated into real world action. So the client launched a $300 per device annual premium add-on. The offer was designed for enterprise customers managing large volumes of equipment. It focused on 5 to 6 high value capabilities. Each feature had a clear role, either anchoring the core package, supporting specific use cases, or being removed, to streamline the offer. And the result was a premium strategy that aligned with customer needs, protected margin, and gave the client confidence to move forward quickly with internal alignment as well as external credibility.
All right, so let's recap. We kind of looked at some questions that were going to be important to answer. And so let's start by kind of looking back at those questions. So, what features matter most to our customers? Well, you can use max diff, and that's going to identify the features that drive value through real world trade off exercises. And in this case, it was about product features, but there's some other applications you could feasibly use max diff for. So, for example, if you wanted to build an effective communications campaign, you could look at different elements of messaging and feed that through a max diff and use that same sort of analysis that would give you the right combination to get the most effective messaging. We wanted to look at what customers are willing to pay. So we have tools like Van Westendorp and Gabber Granger, and they tell us the acceptable price ranges and demand elasticity for the category that we're working in. Building off of what we would learn in the max diff around those priority features, you can use turf analysis, and that's going to identify specific combinations of features that are going to reach the most people. If we get a specific combination, we want a way to look at pricing relative to that specific combination, a little bit different than sort of the price range and where you can play in. Now we're getting real specific and looking at combinations of product features and benefits relative to different price levels. This is where conjoint comes into play. It's going to allow you to simulate how customers are going to respond to different combinations and do so in a competitive context. And then looking at the market overall, it's not homogenous. There's going to be different groups within the market that value different things. And so you can also use the data that comes out of your max diff to do a segmentation and find groups that are going to be more interested in certain combinations of products and features. And this is going to help you move forward with real data-driven insights and, eliminate guesswork and assumptions. You can think about this almost like a roadmap. And you don't need to do everything. And we sort of put this together as a case study. It's interesting. There's almost this like meta level irony because we're talking about bundling, and effectively we've bundled different research methodologies here as part of our approach. But you don't have to use them all. There may be specific cases where, your needs are more soundly focused in one over the other. It's just this structure is something that you can use as a reference to help you move faster. It's going to reduce guesswork and it's going to make more strategic customer informed decisions. And this is a real powerful tool when the market is moving quickly and we're dealing with some of those uncertainties. Heart+Mind helps companies leverage custom research to make smarter, faster decisions about pricing, about product strategy, and portfolio design. Our team brings deep cross sector experience, and that translates into clear, actionable steps. We want you guys to be able to use the data, not just put it on a shelf and have it collect dust. That's no good for us. That's no good for you. We have wicked smart people here and in-house expertise on conducting advanced analytics like max diff and turf and conjoint and a ton of other stuff that I probably can't even mention. We could probably spend a whole webinar just talking about the analytic capabilities. The benefit of that is it gives our clients direct access to expert modeling, and that results in faster, more tailored solutions. Nothing off the shelf here. We are custom building everything for our clients based on their needs. Whether you're navigating cost pressures, you're preparing for a launch, maybe you're fine tuning an offer, we got you. We're here to help. We're here to help you move forward and to do so with clarity and confidence. We hope that today's session maybe sparked some new ideas or maybe piqued your interest to learn some more about us, about what we do. And if so, we'd love to connect. We're going to offer a complimentary 30-minute consult where you can help stress test some of your ideas. We can explore different research methods and methodologies, or maybe even map out next steps based on what your needs are. We're always here for you guys, no pressure. It's just really a chance to talk through your vision of success and how research can help you get there.